get mine. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. Aight, then I'm gone. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. Aight, then I'm gone. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. Aight, then I'm gone. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. Aight, then I'm gone. Movie screens, then life's the biggest production, and it's a bitch with a big appetite for seduction. All of a sudden, niggas fussing for a big introduction.
Hey y'all, this is Daniel. Welcome to Blunt Talk, baby. How we doing? This is the 14th episode, baby, and you're getting just me this time. Just me. Yes, indeed. So, for the 14th episode, you know what I wanted to do. It's the start of spring. You can see the weather being kind of nice outside. I got a couple baseball jerseys in the background because this is my MLB Season Preview, everybody. Yay! All right. So first off, this is how I'm going to do the format for my MLB Season Preview. Normally, for the longest time in the history of baseball, the way the playoffs would work is that there's 3 divisions for each league in baseball, and the winner of each division gets 1 spot, and then after you get those 3 teams per league, you get the best 2 teams as the wild card spots to be the ones that would get the last 2 playoff spots. But last year, because of the pandemic, they did a little different system. They went to like what I like to call the basketball system, and they just went 1 through 8 through the whole league. It didn't matter the divisions or anything. So it was interesting to see. I was a big fan of it, following it. I didn't get to see the whole playoffs, but from the glimpses I catched, it was good. It was fun, in my opinion. It made it different. It gave it a different meaning to the playoffs, because the problem with having 5 teams in the playoff format, in my opinion, is that there's still a decent amount of teams that have a shot to go on a run to the World Series, in my book, that don't make the playoffs every year. So I like this. So I'm going to be sticking to this format for the MLB, man. I'll basically be talking to you guys about my 9 favorite teams per the leagues, and I'll give you a little bit of my inside scoop, my scouting report, and I'll tell you what to watch for. So sit back and relax and let's get it. So pretty much, to explain it right here, there's a division series, which is a best of 5 with the traditional 2-2-1 home team, road team format at the neutral sites. But then now it became a winner of the number 1 seed versus the 8th seed, and versus the winner of the 4 and 5th seed, and then you get the winner of the 2 and 3 seeds. You get the winner of the 2 versus 7 seed matchup against the winner of the 3rd versus 6th seed matchup, and then it goes down from that bracket to like the semifinals, which would be 1 versus 4 if it's the 2 highest seeds win, and 2 versus 3 if the 2 higher seeds win. Then it's like 1 versus 2, for example, and then whoever wins comes out of that league into the World Series. And in baseball is the American League and the National League. There's no real geographical differences in the sense, because both leagues have the 3 divisions, which are Central, East, and West. It's very simple. It's just they wanted to give different rivalries and different matchups in between. And the one thing for those who don't know about baseball is that the American League always has a designated hitter, and the National League does not. So it's always interesting to see, because that adds 1 more player with more of a batting skills than a pitching skills, because in the National League, the pitchers are asked to swing. So let's start with the American League, because it's the league I follow the most after being a Yankees fan, after all. So the number 1 team, in my opinion, this season is going to be the Minnesota Twins. After seeing last season's results for them, if I'm not mistaken, they did a decent job at the playoffs last year, but it being a new format, they didn't go on the longest of runs. They always are one of those teams that manages to get a decent roster, at least, man. I remember since I was starting to like baseball, you have, for example, the Joe Mara Twins days. Those teams were nice. Michael Bourne was a center fielder, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, those teams were always playoff teams, or at least wild card teams, in my opinion. When you get someone like Josh Donaldson and Nelson Cruz to hold the plate down for you, in the sense that those are power heavy hitters. Those are going to get home runs. They're going to get the triples and the doubles, and they're going to get on base, and they're going to get RBIs. That's what matters at the end of the day. You want to get everyone in a cycle. Keep it rolling and rolling, man. Nelson Cruz can definitely do that. He's very old at this age, and so is Josh Donaldson. This is why I wouldn't have him winning the whole thing. I think they'll be good for the regular season. And the addition of Adderton Simmons is a good shortstop for them. Jeez, he played for the Angels the last couple seasons, and that man is a fielding stud. I don't know off the rip how many gold gloves he's got, but if you got him in your field, you're going to be in good hands for at least for getting people out at first base and second base like it's nothing. That's my opinion. The rest of the team, Mitch Garber is a decent catcher, and Jorge Polanco will be a serviceable guy for them too. They got nice pitchers that I like Jay Happ, who's still on the older side, but I saw him in the Blue Jay, and I think it was the Blue Jays or the Yankees. I might be wrong on this, and he was nice for them. Kenta Maeda is their star pitcher for them, and he's going to be really – they go as far as he goes, and it's kind of sad because although they got Jose Berrios and Michael Pineda, who are also good serviceable pitchers – you need your rotation to be good from 1 to 5 in order to be like a World Series team, in my opinion. This will get you done like a top, because at worst case scenario for the Twins, they're like a 3-4 of the third, fourth best team in the American League, in my opinion. But I feel like with this roster, with the defensive fielding and the heavy hitters this guy, it's gonna do a nice job in the regular season. I see these guys finishing first in the American League. Now, let's go on to the team that I think is gonna be the second in the American League. And it's no other than my New York Yankees. I don't want to be biased, but I'm just being straight up with you guys. As a regular season team, 164 games or 66 games this season, I can see the Yankees finishing very strongly this season. I'm not trying to say this is a World Series winning team, because it's more or less the same roster we had, except that we added Corey Kluber in the pitching rotation this time to help out Garrett Cole. But it's good enough right now. Come on. We signed DJ LeMahieu back. We brought him back. He was arguably, if not our best player last season. Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton throughout their whole Yankees tenures cannot stay healthy to help themselves. Don't get me wrong. I got my Stanton jersey right there, and I love Stanton. I love Aaron Judge. Heavy hitters. They swing for the fences. Giancarlo Stanton's still one of those players that likes to strike out or swing a lot. He's one of those trigger-happy swingers. So you're going to have to deal with that. But apart from that, looking at this roster from up and down, like the lineup, you start off with DJ LeMahieu, Aaron Judge, Aaron Hicks, Giancarlo Stanton, Luke Boyd, Gleyber Torres, Clint Frazier, Jor Urshela, Gary Sanchez. Brett Gardner came back, if I'm not mistaken, for like a 1-year deal for the retirement something. They got talent, and the pitching rotation is the weak spot of this team, in my opinion, because they got a nice bullpen, not the greatest bullpen, but it's serviceable bullpen, in my opinion. But their starting rotation they lack that one-star pitcher, in my opinion, because Garrett Cole is good enough, and now that you add Corey Kluber, that's a good addition. So yeah, pretty much. The only real struggle I see with this Yankees team in the long run is their pitching rotation, how far they can take them. As a matter, because when you get to the playoffs, whether it's an actual divisional like series is normal, the normal format, or it's the 1-8 format, you're gonna need your pitchers to come through for you in the clutch, man. You're just going to, and that showed you last season with the Yankees. They struggled against a team like the Tampa Bay Rays. Don't get me wrong; they're a great team, and we're about to talk about them in a few seconds, or a few minutes, but you know what I mean. But they're not known for their hitting. They're known for all their great pitching, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, the Yankees struggle with their pitchers against a team like that. So it shows you we need to up the pitching. That's the one biggest concern, in my opinion. But for the regular season's concern, they're going to finish as a top 2 team. They're probably going to win their division too, in my opinion, if I'm being honest with you. So next up, we got the number 3 seed in the American League. In my perspective, is going to be the Houston Astros. Now, I know they lost George Springer. Don't get me wrong. George Springer is a good player. They lost a lot of their rotational pieces and their depth in a sense. And they've got a lot of expiring contracts coming up soon. I just read the notification. Carlos Correa didn't sign the extension, and he's like one of the franchise players. For crying out loud, he's my Puerto Rican baby, man. I need to see him being a successful team. Well, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. This team is still got it. Ignore the whole scandal that happened. Let's act like we live in a perfect world where that never happened. you would look at this roster in paper and you're like, they're contenders for sure. There's no way you can say they're not contenders. Jose Altuve still got it, never lost it. Alex Bregman's still gonna be there for you. Michael Brantley's consistent as hell. Jordan Alvarez is a designated hitter, does what he needs to do. He gets on base, he gets his RBIs, he gets his hits. That's what matters. You got Carlos Correa, who not only can do it on the field as a fielder, he can do it out on the plate as a batter, and he can also. He's really fast. He can steal a couple bases. He's a little bit of a 5-2 player, not fully a 5-2 player, but he's grasping the surface on it, in my opinion. Though for the rest of the roster, their pitcher rotation still stays nice. Zach Greinke, Lance McCullers, Framber Valdez. Those three are solid. Are you kidding me? Just those three alone can take it through the whole season. I don't even care about the Christian Javier and Jose Urquidy. Sheesh. The bullpen lacks a little bit of that name recognition in a sense. If you're a casual fan, for example, and you just look at their bullpen, you're like, I don't know, none of those guys that will help us really take it over. Or none of them are like known for being that great. Ryan Presley's decent enough as their closer, but we'll have to see how it goes. My biggest concern with this Houston Astros team is the fact that they got a lot of contracts expiring, and they got like the core starting to dissipate because Dallas Keuchel left. Justin Verlander, I don't know why he's not in the roster. I'm very confused. Did Justin Verlander retire or something? Because he's not in the projected roster that I looked up here for this preview. So, yeah, he's still under the Houston Astros, even though he's 38 years old. He's probably not going to be doing much at this point in his career because he won the title. If they didn't take his ring away from him, so he kind of accomplished everything he needed to do. But yeah, that's my biggest concern, man. The core is dissipating, and I don't know if they will keep it long going for now. Carlos Correa wants to leave. It's like a rumor now, so we'll have to see what happens, actually. So yeah. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Tampa Bay Rays, they are our fourth best team in this preview. We got Austin Meadows, Brandon Lowe as the two leadoff hitters for them. Randy Arozarena. All right, hold up. Randy Arozarena. Man, that kid can swing, man. That kid's a nice hitter. Always hits for contact. He can be a power hitter when he needs to, too. G-Man Choi, Joy Wendell, Joichi Tosaguto. Those guys don't know much about him because they weren't in the previous conventional group that the Tampa Bay Rays had. Mike Sonido's a guy that rings a bell, but besides that, they really went over. They went an overhaul for some reason. They left Blake Snell and Charlie Morton leave. I didn't get it, honestly. It's kind of interesting though, because they had the issue from last World Series because they just made it to the World Series and they left so many key contributors leave. It's like, are you not trying to do anything? Because don't get me wrong, they're still a good team. Tyler Glasso, good pitcher. Chris Archer and Michael Wacha, they're gonna get the job done as the starting pitchers. Two right-handers, come on, man. Those guys know their stuff, in my opinion. But if you would have kept Charlie Morton and Blake Snell, that rotation would have been the best in the whole league in my book. That's why I don't see Tampa Bay being a 1 or 2 or even the third best team in the American League. They just made the World Series too. They came out of the American League. It's just wow, bro. It just leaves me awestruck seeing how this team kind of took a step down. They're still good. Don't get me wrong. And they're probably going to exceed expectations because some of these guys are going to turn into stars. That's what the Tampa Bay Rays do. They just know how to develop people that don't have any like future. Not any future, but you get what I mean. People that you don't expect to become stars and they out of nowhere just turn them into stars like it's that. They're really good at it. So I think they're going to finish fourth, if I'm being honest with you. Now for the fifth team that I got here, this is going to surprise a bunch of people, but I'm very big on the Chicago White Sox, man. Oh my goodness. This team made moves, baby. First off, they signed Liam Hendricks as the closing pitcher. He is arguably one of the top 5 closing pitchers in the game right now, in my book, and in everyone else's book this time. This is not just my opinion. This is actual facts. This is facts. He's going to get the job done. He closed. He's going to get as much double-digit saves as he can. He does this all the time. And then their starting rotation for pitching, Lucas Giolito, Dallas Keuchel, and they added Lance Lynn, who's a very good. Last year for the Rangers, he was the only guy they really had. So it's kind of interesting to see that he went to the White Sox. I'm not complaining. I want this. The White Sox has been struggling for so long. They deserve a team like this, in my opinion. Honestly, man, they really did it. Tim Anderson, good serviceable player. Yohan Moncada is going to do the job done. Jose Abreu is the star player of this team. This team goes as far as Jose Abreu can take them because Yasmani Grandal is really good too. They got a nice Hispanic core right there. Nick Madrigal, Adam Eden is very old by now, Adam Eden, but he'll probably just still get some hits. You never know. Eloy Jimenez is really good for them. Watch out for him. He's a good left fielder for them. He might be in the Gold Glove conversation, but it might be too soon for him. He's still developing on the field. He's more of a contact hitter at the point. At this point of his career right now, he's still young, though. That's the thing. Besides that, I don't know that much about the Chicago White Sox in the sense of I know they did really good last year. They made it to the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, but they lost in the first round. But the more playoff experience this team gets, it's going to be the better for them, man. And seriously, this team's got a spark. This team, if this format stays as a divisional winners in the wild cards, I can see this team being a wild card. And heck, they could give the Minnesota Twins a run for their money, baby. They could honestly do it. Even though I know I get it. I put Minnesota as the number one best team for the regular season, but as an overall thing, these teams are not that far away from each other in my book. Because the Minnesota Twins don't have the same type of top tier rosters they had a couple years ago, and the White Sox are more closer to that level now. It's like the Twins dropped off a little bit, and the Chicago White Sox went up a little bit, in my opinion. So, I just feel like I wouldn't be surprised if the Chicago White Sox win the Central Division somehow. So yeah, watch out for the pitching. That's really how they're gonna get to you now. For the sixth team, in my opinion, I got the Los Angeles Angels, baby. Anaheim. First off, the greatest player in the world in the history of baseball right now is a man called Mike Trout, if I'm not mistaken, or at least if I say otherwise, any baseball historian would smack me in the face. This team, I want to look it up because I'm generally curious, but I don't know how many times they missed the playoffs in the Mike Trout era. Mike Trout playoff appearances. He has only been to the playoffs once in his career, and that was 2014, and they were swept in 3 games in the American League Divisional Series. Oh my goodness, that's a problem. I don't understand how you can call a person the GOAT, and I can get that he gets the stats, and I get he gets the accolades. I get he does everything. He gets on base, RBIs, hits, singles, doubles, triples, steals, bases, is good at fielding. He does everything. He's a 5-tool player, and he deserves the recognition to be considered like the greatest. But he hasn't. I understand baseball is not like basketball in that sense that you need a whole team to be perfect instead of just having a couple guys carry it. But come on, man. If Mike Trout really the GOAT, this team would have made the playoffs. I'm just saying. They have some serviceable people. They had Aldrin Simmons last year, who's a good at fielding. You would have thought that was good, nice enough. Justin Upton's at the tail end of his career. I love Justin Upton. He was one of my all-time favorite players. Albert Pujols, he's 40 years old now. He's not going to do anything. Shohei Ohtani's nice. He can do something, but you never know what's the idea with the Angels. Do they want him as a pitcher? Do they want him as a batter? Because him doing both for the length of his career is not going to be good on him. It's going to take a toll, in my opinion. Anthony Rendon, power hitter here in the Nationals. Back in his day, he was one of the only guys that they had next to Bryce Harper. And that's really it. Anthony Rendon and Mike Trout are the only guys that are going to get like heavy hitting bases for you. Jose Iglesias from the Baltimore Orioles was a good pickup for them. I don't know much about him in that sense because I didn't pay attention to the Baltimore Orioles that much last season. I know he was basically their best player, but yeah, I don't know how to feel about this, man. Because I got him 6, don't get me wrong. So I'm high on them because it's Mike Trout at the end of the day. And I see the numbers he does, and I see Anthony Rendon's history, and I see that they got people that can at least hit for contact and get to the base. They don't have a lot of power hitting, but they have a lot of contact, consistent people like David Fletcher, Shohei Ohtani. Dexter Fowler will get you on base. Jose Iglesias should get you on base. My biggest concern for them is the depth of their pitching rotation because I love Andrew Heaney and I like Dylan Bundy. Those are 2 players that I think are really good, in my opinion. They're good pitchers. They're not going to be horrible pitchers. You're not going to complain if they're on your team. The rest of the lineup, that's where I get concerned because it's not a deep rotation. You're depending on Andrew Heaney and Dylan Buntley night basis, and I don't know how good it's going to be that for you in the long run, if I'm being honest. So yeah, that's my opinion on Los Angeles Angels. If it's an eight, if it's the format is for the eight best teams to make the playoffs, I think they do. I think they do. If it's a divisional, they could be a, a borderline wild card team at most, in my opinion. This is where it's going to drop down on talent significance in a sense. These are going to be the teams that would be battling for a wild card spot if it's the normal traditional format for baseball. So my seventh team in the American League is the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm very big on the Blue Jays. I like the moves they did, and they were still trying to do more moves, man. They wanted Michael Brantley from the Astros. That would have been nice. I would have loved for that to happen for the Blue Jays. They still got a nice team, though. George Springer's the newest signing. Marcus Semien's another good signing. Gosh, man, Marcus Semien, the fielding second baseman, that guy's going to get a lot of outs for you. George Springer's going to hit for dingers and get on base and be a fast guy. Bo Bichette, saw his guy in the MLB The Show the other day, and I was like, his name is Bo Bichette. Teoscar Hernandez and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. All these, they're three Hispanics. I don't want to mess up because I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was born in Canada, but Vladimir Guerrero Sr. is Dominican, if I'm not mistaken. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is from Dominican Republic, and I think Teoscar Hernandez is from Cuba. That's how far they go in the batting perspective for this team, because those are their stars. Those are the guys that are going to get you on base. They're going to get for the long hits. Adding George Springer and Marcus Semien makes this a more all-around lineup that it needed to be, because the rest of this team is not that good. I still think they got what it takes, though. Kirby Yates is a good closer for them. I think they just signed him, too. I don't think Kirby Yates was with him last year, so Kirby Yates is going to get the job done as a closer, get some shutouts, get some saves for himself. Their starting pitching rotation needs some work, though. Hyunjin Ryo, I mean, he's good. Don't get me wrong, but him being your only good pitcher is not good. That's the problem. So we have to see what the Blue Jays can do about this, in my opinion. But I want to see the Blue Jays go on a run. I love their young core. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can be a future face of the MLB, and you never know, man. Kid's still young. That was a Hall of Famer. It's like in the making, man. It's in the making. Now, for the eighth best team, in my opinion, we got the Boston Red Sox. Yes, the Boston Red Sox. I'm a Yankees fan, but I still think they're good enough to make the playoffs, as I'm being honest with you. First off, they got the homie Enrique Hernandez, a.k.a. Kike Hernandez, baby. The Puerto Rican sensations now with the Boston Red Sox. That gives me a little bit more reason to support my fellow Bostonians. You know what I'm saying? Alex Verdugo's a nice outfielder. Rafael Devers is the real focus next to Sander Bogarts for this team, though. Those two are the young stars for this team and for the next decade, honestly. So I'm interested to see how the Boston Red Sox manage to build a team around Devers and Bogarts for the future. JD Martinez is at the tail end of his career, but he's still really good, though. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to diminish him at all. He's a great player. He's going to get his dingers. He's going to get his triples and doubles, too. He's going to swing for the fences, basically. That's what he does. Besides that, Christian Vasquez is a good catcher. He probably is in the top 10 catchers in the league, honestly, at least, in my opinion. Besides someone like Marwin Gonzalez as a utility player for them, I don't know how to really feel about this team, because the problem is Chris Sale is their one great pitcher for them, but he is now coming back from, I think it's Tommy John surgery. So it's going to take him a while. It's not going to be a speedy recovery. It's Tommy John surgery. Also, you got to hope he's the same pitcher. But the only guy I really have any significant memory of in this Boston Red Sox team are people like Eduardo Rodriguez and Nathan Eovaldi. Those guys will be serviceable enough to get you a couple wins throughout the season, but they're not going to get you over the hump. That's why I see this team struggling a little bit, because their lineup is there, and their lineup is there in comparison to all the other teams battling for wild card spots. They can do that with their lineup alone. Their pitching rotation and their bullpen is what scares me. Adam Ottavino, and yeah. That's the only relief pitcher that I think has any significant value there in my book. So now I'm going to talk about the ninth team in the American League. I'm only doing this because I wanted to give it a fair shot, in the sense that you never know if these guys can make it to the postseason. So it's the Oakland Athletics. The Oakland Athletics are one of those teams that whenever you count them down, they always make a comeback or get themselves like a 20-game win streak out of nowhere and make the postseason as a wild card. They are very consistent, and it's not a bad organization at all. These guys know what they're doing year after year after year. It feels like they're rebuilding on the fly, and that they're somehow, even though they're rebuilding on the fly, still being competitive. I bet you, like in the last 5 years, they made the playoffs at least 2 to 3 times, at least. The good players they have: Matt Chapman, Matt Also, Mark Kangha. Elvis Andrews is a name that rings a bell alongside Tony Kemp, 2 old players that were really good in their primes, but now they're just probably serviceable role players for them. Stephen Piscotty's good for them. The one thing is, even though they brought in Trevor Rosenthal, they lost Liam Hendricks, so it's still a good closer for him to have. But I feel like if Liam Hendricks would have been there, then that would have secured their playoff spot. But him not being there is that significant of a loss, in my opinion. That's why I put this team specifically in 9, because they always make sure that they can make the playoffs somehow, but sometimes they don't, and they're like very borderline teams. So I didn't know if to count them into the playoffs or say they were just in the outside looking in, because I wouldn't be surprised if this team finishes like a top 6 team in the American League and somehow fights for a wild card spot the last couple of weeks of the season. I wouldn't be surprised at all, man. So that's it for the American League so far, man. That's what I got for you so far. Let's jump on to the National League. I know it's going to be a very Debbie Downer type answer, but I got the defending champions, the Los Angeles Dodgers, being the people that are going to win the National League, or at least finish in the top of scratch that. We're going to say that they're going to finish on top of the National League table, in my opinion, if it's a 1-8 season. This seems unfair, man. I'm just trying to tell you. Mookie Betts, Corey Seager, Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger, Max Muncy. Those 5 people alone are good enough to get you to the playoffs themselves, man. And they had Manny Machado just a couple years ago, and they've let some people go, and they're still this dominant. I just can't believe it. And I just got a notification, guys. Eloy Jimenez from the Chicago White Sox is going to miss 5 to 6 months. So scratch that. The White Sox, are going to be hurt from that, but I still think that the overall star power in that team and the overall players that they got alongside will still be serviceable enough to be in the playoffs. Maybe slide them down to 6 or 7 if it's that big of a significant hurt for them. All right, but back to the topic at hand. Los Angeles Dodgers, man. Their lineup itself is really good. Austin Barnes is their backup catcher too in this projected lineup. That's interesting. They got Kenley Jansen as the closer. Brandon Morrow's another good closer. Dustin May. And let's get on to their pitching rotation, because this is it's not fair, man. Julio Urias, David Price, Trevor Bauer, Clayton Kershaw, and Walker Buehler. It's done. What else do I gotta say? Clayton Kershaw was considered back in the day like the greatest pitcher of all time. Not pitcher of all time. Pitcher of our decade, of pitcher of our generation. David Price, a bunch of no-hitters back in his day. Trevor Bauer has always been good for the last 8 to 10 years. Are you serious? Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Dodgers team, and it's not a actual fan, but I'm a fan of the lineup and the pitching rotation they got. I'd be surprised if they don't finish number 1 in the National League. Now to the number 2 team. I really love this team, and I hope they prove me wrong with a statement I just said about the Dodgers, and they beat them in the West Division of the National League. It's the San Diego Padres, baby. Trent Grisham, Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, Eric Hosmer, Tommy Pham, Will Myers, Jake Cronenworth, Austin Nola. That lineup itself, 1 through 9, is actually decent enough to get you to a World Series off the rip, in my opinion. Jurickson Profar is a backup for them, and he's a starter quality player in my book. Their pitcher rotation's looking nice too. They added Yu Darvish from the Houston Astros. No, he was in the Chicago Cubs. What am I saying? They added Yu Darvish from the Chicago Cubs, Blake Snell from the Tampa Bay Rays, and they kept Dinelson Lamet too. Those 3 pitchers are good enough, man. Those MLB The Show ratings wise, all those 3 pitchers would be 89 rated and above. And honestly, if you get 389 rated pitchers, you're good. Your rotation's solid. You don't got to worry about anything unless you get injuries. That's my opinion. Their bullpen is also really good. Drew Pomeranz is one of them guys for them. And I see them going as far as Drew Pomeranz and the rest is supporting of the supporting cast goes, like Emilio Pagan, Craig Stammen, Matt Strom. Those guys are good serviceable relief pitchers, and you only need them for a couple innings. So I think you'll be good. Honestly, I think you'll be fine with just that. My problem with this team is it depends on the format that MLB decides to go for the playoffs. If the playoffs goes from the divisional series, there's only one team that's going to come out to have home field advantage in the West. It's between San Diego and Los Angeles. And like them being the two best teams in this whole league, that's just wild because it shows you one of these teams is going to have to do a wild card if it stays as the normal traditional series. So I'm intrigued to see what happens because I believe, honestly, the two best teams in the National League are the San Diego Padres and the Los Angeles Dodgers. So that's just my book. That's my opinion. Don't want people to get annoyed or upset or anything with me because this is just, at the end of the day, it's just my opinion. So if you don't agree with my baseball knowledge, then that's good for you, man. The third best team in the National League, I believe, are the Atlanta Braves. They just made it to the National League Conference Finals, if I'm not mistaken. That's what it would be called. Ronald Acuna Jr. Come on, man. Swings for the fences, gets on base, contacts, RBIs. He does a little bit of everything, and he's still a young baby, okay? Dansby Swanson. He's one of those gold glover shortstops, man. He's going to get the job done. You can't complain about what he does. He's not the best on the plate, but he does what he does on the field. Freddie Freeman. Come on, man. Freddie Freeman's like a LeBron James to Atlanta now, man. That guy's viewed as an icon. That man is viewed as like their Jesus and their savior, man. If it's not Freddie Freeman, they don't want him, man. Marcell Ozuna. If I'm not mistaken, Marcell Ozuna is the guy that started his career in the Miami Marlins and then got traded when they started their rebuilding process. Marcell Ozuna is a star. He's a stud. You can't stop him. He's like on a hot streak like last season for the Braves. If he keeps that momentum, I can see them being really good still, man. Ozzy Albies and Travis d'Arnaud are two good pieces for them too. In my book, I can't complain that those two guys are my catcher and my second baseman, man. Now for their pitching, the problem with their pitching is they have good pitching. They don't have great pitching, and that's why I wouldn't say they're better than the Dodgers or than the what they're called, the Padres right there, because that's the one thing they're lacking. Mike Soroka, Max Fried, and Charlie Morton, and Drew Smyly too, are all pitchers that I could count on the regular season to be part of my rotation and have me being happy with. They're just not to the other tier. Like they're serviceable, but they're not like in the all-star tier. Except for the exception of someone like Charlie Morton and Max Fried probably, but you know what I mean? They just need one pitcher that's like top tier, in my opinion, and then that rotation becomes like crazy. That's my only concern for the Braves, because the Mets and their division, they're in the toughest division in baseball, in my opinion. You got the Atlanta Braves, New York Mets, Washington Nationals, Philadelphia Phillies. All those four teams can honestly, I can see them making a playoff run with some of their rosters, man. All right. The fourth best team in the National League in my book is the Milwaukee Brewers, man, from the Central Division. They added Colton Wong this year and Jackie Bradley Jr., but this team still needs a lot of help, man. Lots of help. Because Christian Yelich, it feels like Christian Yelich is really doing it all here. And he's trying too much. You saw it last season because the 2 seasons ago he was an MVP. And I don't know if he won it back-to-back, but last season the Brewers struggled because the overall talent in the roster isn't there. And Christian Yelich is swinging on too many balls and just striking out because he's trying to do too much for this team. Lorenzo Cain isn't the same guy he used to be. You're kind of hoping Lorenzo Cain comes back, but this team is still serviceable. They got nice outfielders. Jackie Bradley Jr. and Colton Wong and Orlando Arcia are going to get outs for you. They're going to get the ball, and they're going to make sure to throw it to the base or get the right spot in time, in my book. That's things that you really care about. Their bench is not it, in my book. Their bullpen, Josh Hader is probably a top 3 closer in baseball, and unless they trade him, that's going to be the reason why that the Brewers are still going to be in contention for a World Series in my book, because the Central Division is competitive, but I mean, like it's theirs for the taking if it's that format. If it's this format, then I mean, They can be like a team that finishes fourth and has some home field advantage at least. That's my honest opinion. Brandon Woodruff and Corbin Bourne's two serviceable starting pitchers. That again, it's like the problem that we just talked about the Atlanta Braves. They're up there, but they're not in the top tier of pitching. So that's why I see them struggling. Now, for the fifth best team in the National League, I have predicted to be the New York Mets. Yes, the Yankees fans got the Mets being a great team. I know. They are, man. These guys have done an exceptional job in the last couple of years of building a dynasty. And yes, I said dynasty. Francisco Lindor, I'm not being biased because I'm Puerto Rican, but that's leadoff hitter, shortstop, Gold Glover. Come on, man. He can get you decent hits too. He's gonna get his RBIs. He's not gonna mess up for you. Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso, Michael Conforto, Dominic Smith. They don't have the deepest lineup in their batting order. So like they're gonna be very top heavy in the sense of Francisco Lindor, Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso, Conforto, in my book. But they're pitching. Oh my goodness, they're pitching, man. They got Jacob deGrom, arguably the greatest starting pitcher in our game right now. Carlos Carrasco, Noah Syndergaard. I think Noah Syndergaard's coming back from an injury, but with Jacob deGrom himself, you're good enough to be for the regular season until Noah Syndergaard comes back. Marcus Stroman is still a good pitcher, and Toddy Juan Walker. I'm big on Toddy Juan Walker. He's a good pitcher, and he's still got potential. So yeah. The main concern with the New York Mets in reality is how good is that lineup overall, because we have some great stars and some great heavy hitters and great on-base people. But how good can that overall lineup get to you? Because at the end of the day, baseball's a sport that your whole lineup's got to be on point because their pitching's gonna be there. It's just the questioning of their lineup. Now, for the sixth best team in the National League, I got the St. Louis Cardinals. Yes, indeed. They did a big move this offseason, the Nolan Arenado trade. From the top of my head, I apologize. I can't remember what exactly they give up for Nolan Arenado. I know it was some prospects and a pick. But this was very worth it for them. Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado are arguably two of the greatest basemen we have in the game right now. And they're both on the same team, and it doesn't interfere with them. They're playing on their national positions. Nolan's on the third, and Paul's on the first. And when you get Yadier Molina, another Puerto Rican, I know he's on the older side, but Yadier Molina still got the intangibles and the baseball IQ. You know what I mean? He's going to see he's got the vision still. He's got the arm still. Just because he's not going to get like dingers and like good base percentages and slugging percentages and on base, whatever. Like he's still good for what you need him to do. You can depend on the swinging and the batting with Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Paul DeJong for this team. Now, my biggest concern for this team is their pitching, because off rip, Adam Wainwright is the only guy that I remember from the golden age of the Cardinals pitching rotations, and now Jack Flaherty and Miles Mikolas are the guys ahead of him in the pitching rotation. So it's like you got to see how it works out for them. That's why I have them making the playoffs if it's a best 8 teams format. But if it's the divisional series, they can give a run to the Brewers. Don't get me wrong. If they beat the Brewers, I wouldn't be surprised because that Brewers team still lacks the overall support. But so does this team. My only thing is that the Cardinals have 2 stars in comparison to the Brewers that have 1 true star in that upper echelon of the baseball rankings. So yeah, biggest concern for the Cardinals is their pitching, to be honest. So look out to see if they make any moves to add more depth in their starting rotation pitchers, because I think their bullpen with Daniel Ponce de Leon and Andrew Miller, Ryan Helsley, Jordan Hicks, they can be okay for a while. But you know what I mean? They need some moves in the pitching department. The 7th best team in the National League, in my book, is going to be the Washington Nationals, baby. Shout out to the Nationals. They won the World Series just a couple years ago, man. Juan Soto's still on the team. Young baby Juan, that man, oh my goodness, he was a rookie when they won, if I'm not mistaken. And him still being here, that shows you. They got Josh Bell from Pittsburgh back in the day. I don't know how long ago Josh Bell moved from Pittsburgh to the Nationals, but that's a good player. Kyle Schwarber should still have it in my book. I know that he's probably close to 30 by now in this age, but he's still a good player. Trey Turner, not a power hitter, but he's a contact hitter. He's fast. He can field. He can get outs. Starling Castro, Yan Gomez is a very good catcher. Again, Yan Gomez is borderline. Like it's Yan Gomez and Christian Vasquez are interchangeable. They're both good catchers. You can't go wrong with having them as a catcher. You're not extremely excited about it, but yeah, if you got them as a catcher, you're good. Now, the real highlight of this team, though. Now, I kind of feel bad that this team is the 7th best in the National League because the National League is a better league. It's looking like a top tier, top heavy, bigger league than the American League, in my opinion. But when you get Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, John Lester in your rotation, sheesh, man, that's a good rotation. And make it to playoff time. Because if this team could definitely contend for a wild card spot, without a doubt. If either the Mets or the Braves in the National League East division slump and kind of screw over this season, it's theirs for the taking. You can't tell me otherwise, man. Because this team is good. This team's got players. They got the player recognition. On paper, this team should be a great team. It's just a matter of them being in the most competitive division, in my opinion. So I just see them being like on the end of the lower end of the table. So nothing against them. I love the Nationals. I hope they do make it to the playoffs. I prefer for them to make it over in the playoffs over a team like the Mets. But yeah, it's interesting to see depending on the format. So hopefully it is a 1-2-8 format so that a team like the Nationals being this good can still make it out to the playoffs. Now, the 8th best team in the National League, I know it took a while, but the Chicago Cubs, man, lost Yu Darvish first off. I'm looking on their team in paper, and even though they still got basically their whole core, and they got nice players from top to bottom. I just see the National League and see them struggling a little bit. I don't know. They got Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, my boy Javi Baez, whose jersey I got in there in the back from Puerto Rico, Jock Peterson, Wilson Contreras, and Jason Hayward. That batting lineup is as good as it gets. I don't think you'd be disappointed if it happens as your leadoff hitter. Like, sheesh, that's a good lineup. That you're gonna be good for the season. You're good. My concern with this team is Craig Kimbrell is their closer, and Craig Kimbrell's a great closer, but is he gonna stay healthy for you and be that closer for the whole rest of the year? That's my biggest concern when it comes to someone like Craig Kimbrell. The other thing is their starting rotation is weird. I feel like them losing Yu Darvish makes them lose an identity in a sense. Jake Arrieta is still there. Kyle Hendricks is their main starting pitcher. But besides that, I don't know if I feel that comfortable with the other people they have in the rest of the rotation. But this is my point. Again, since this is a 1-8 matchup, it's very hard to say this because the Central Division in the National League is very competitive as well. You got the St. Louis Cardinals and you get the Milwaukee Brewers as the two other teams that I just mentioned before this. It can all be interchangeable. I would not be surprised if the Chicago Cubs end up winning the National League Central somehow and the Brewers end up being the wild card if the St. Louis Cardinals are the wild card. Because this team, if it gets it going, their lineup is going to carry them. I just don't think their pitching rotation is going to be good enough to make a that high up of a seed for a 1-8 playoff format. But yes. Now, my last team for the National League is going to be the Philadelphia Phillies, man. The Philadelphia Phillies. Go Phillies! I like their team. I like the team on paper. They got Andrew McCutchen, who's still a veteran at this point. Bryce Harper went there. JT Realmuto as a catcher. He's arguably in the top 10. He's not borderline like the other guys we were discussing. He's actually solidified in the top 10 as a catcher. Didi Gregorius, I love. I mean, come on. He played for the Yankees, and he's a shortstop. I think he's from the Netherlands, too. You gotta love Diddy, man. If you hate on Diddy, I hate on you for hating on Diddy. Rhys Hoskins, one of the most underrated players, in my opinion, in baseball. He gets his, man. It's like he gets his fair share of the hits and the sugar, man. And John Segura is a second baseman for this team. That's really good, too. Scott Kingery, I like him as one of their options from the bench. I don't like their bullpen, but I like some of their pitchers like Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. Like those two guys are good starting pitchers and they can help you for like a whole season. But like them being your only two good pitchers, that's where my concern's at. You need to have a more deeper pitching rotation if you want to go far. Because this lineup is the same thing as the previous team I just mentioned, the Chicago Cubs. I love their lineup from top to bottom. They got heavy hitters. They got people that can steal bases, people that can play defense, and they have people that can do everything they need. It's just the pitching rotation needs to be more stronger and deeper for them to be better. So, yeah, That's how it's gonna be, guys. That's my 1 through 9 for the American League and the National League. If you got any questions or concerns, or you think that I have a team too low or too high, let me know. I hope that you guys enjoy. It took me a lot of time and effort into doing the research and actually getting the projected lineups and just making an actual order of my predictions. So I really hope that you guys enjoy and that you guys like the episode. So without further ado, thank you guys for tuning in, whether it's SoundCloud or YouTube. Peace out, my people.